Hi, and welcome to the third installment of the Volca tutorial for beginners. Here it is. And this time we're going to be looking at how to design sounds on the Volca drum. That is, how to really understand the sound sources, the amplitude envelope generators, the pitch modifiers, and everything that maybe so far you've been fiddling with this thing, and actually we don't want to treat this as a toy, we want to treat it as an instrument and to truly understand it. So before we jump into that, I'm going to ask you to get a few things. I'm not going to tell you to ring that bell or subscribe to my channel, none of that. I'm going to ask you to get headphones because since this is sound design for the Volca drum, if you actually try to learn this using like your cell phone speakers, that's not going to work out. They don't reproduce any bass sounds at all. So get speakers or turn on your monitors so that you can actually hear what's going on. And the next thing is that you get one of these cables or go get it if you have it already. Okay, so this is a USB to Midi cable. Okay, I think it's also called an interface. If you don't have it, don't quit right now, because you can still learn everything that I'm going to teach on this video without the cable, but you really want to get it later on. Because, okay, so this is Midi in out USB. So USB goes into the computer, right? And then the Midi out of the cable will go into the Midi in of the Volca drum. Okay, once we've done that, you're going to be able to access properly the star of this video, that is the Synthmata page. Okay, so synthmata.com. Okay, this is how you write synthmata.com. Okay, this is an online editor created by Oscillator Sink. This guy is the real deal. If you really want to learn about synths in general, go visit his page, go see his videos on YouTube. He's the real deal. And he created this free online editor for the Volca drum that is such an amazing tool, because it lays out visually every parameter of the Volca drum, no matter how hidden it is right here for you. And every parameter has like a slider with the levels, and it's super well organized so that you can reach everything and even compare how one layer is to the next. I mean, it just brings sound design on the Volca drum to a different level. It's not meant for creating sequences or beats. It's just for creating the sounds, which is probably the most problematic interface with the drum machine itself. So regarding the Synthmata online editor for the Volca drum, first let's take a quick look at how it's organized. You'll see that there's part 1, layer 1, layer 2, which have exactly the same parts to it, elements to it, and then each part ends on the sound processing channel, which again is exactly the same for each part. Okay, so sound sources. There's 5 sound sources in total, and that's extremely clear on this online editor. And one is the sine wave, which is it sounds like this at this pitch. I'm gonna bring the pitch a little bit higher. Okay, so sine waves are the more natural, or the more organic, smooth sounding of the sound sources available here. And it's particularly useful for making like regular or acoustic drum kits, like good old drum kits. Okay, so that's one sound source. Then the next is a sawtooth wave, and the sawtooth wave is more electrical, more synth-like, more synthesized, sort of. So if we compare the sound, you can immediately tell at low registers it's kind of buzzier, right? And the other wave, the sine wave, is again, like I said, more organic, more natural sounding. I mean, you could still use either one for whatever sounds you want to make, but to keep it simple, the sine wave will be your like regular instrument timbre kind of sound, and your sawtooth will be your more electric sound. So if you would want to emulate like electric guitar riff, for example, I would use the sawtooth. If you wanted to emulate a bass drum or a aerial tom on a bass on a drum kit, I'd use the sine wave. Okay, um, and the main control for your sound sources, of course, is the pitch. I'm gonna just play with it a little bit so that you make sure that you know this part, right? I'm gonna hit my Volca right here. I'm just moving the pitch up, higher, lower pitch, sine wave. You can already tell how softer it is, even by doing this, simple exercise of sliding the pitch. The next three are noise sources. So the first one, the high pass, is that kind of sound where you can immediately tell that that's not what you're going to build a bass drum or a snare drum with. Maybe a snare drum for the snares themselves. This could be a useful layer, but since this is not a pitched sound, the pitch will be really like the band of the filter. For example, I'm here on the high pass filter, which means that it will start from this, which is already a high pitched noise that can only get higher. Okay, you can tell already that this kind of sound, very high pass filter noise, would be appropriate for the last bit of a cymbal crash, something like that, right? Or a hi-hat if it's really short. Okay. Now the next one, I'm gonna set the pitch in the middle or at the middle. I don't know. We're gonna listen now to the low pass filter. So we can already tell that this is letting the lower end of the noise through, and if we bring this knob to as low as it can get, we can, at least right now I can't hear it anymore. So it's really low noise to relatively high. The band pass filter, that is like a definite stretch within the range of the high and low noises. It's just like a finer continuum of frequencies. So if you just needed one, you probably use this one because it's got the broadest range of all. It doesn't reach the extreme highs or the extreme lows, but it's got all the in between really well exploited. Okay, so I think that really clarifies where we lie on sound sources. So you have a very smooth, organic sine wave, a more electric sawtooth wave, and then the three noises. Each one with the particular bandwidth that applies. So we'll look now at the mod type, which is in fact a pitch modulator that affects sound over time. It's a modifier, it's not a sound source. So what this means is that if you have your sound source right here, let's imagine it's a sine wave and it's going boo, your pitch modifier, in this case your modulation, your pitch modulation, will sort of grab that wave, envelope it, right, and affect it over time. In this case, what will affect over time is specifically pitch. There's three type of pitch modulators. One is the envelope or rise and fall. So this will sort of grab the pitch, rise it and release it. So grab it, modify it, and release it. Then there's an LFO, or basically an oscillator, a low frequency oscillator in this case, that will grab the sound source and have it go through some kind of oscillation, faster, slower. We'll hear it. Okay, and then there's noise, or in this case, maybe called random pitch modulation, but it'll be, well, more random, more chaotic, less organized than the other two options that we just looked at. Okay, so the first one to really catch, to hear what's going on, the best one is the LFO. LFO is really clear on what's going on here. So I'll just press, a note here. I'll bring the pitch a little bit higher. And mod amount. Right now I'm just going to move it to the right. And the increments will be in positive numbers. You see I have a positive 10. What I mean is that if I had moved it to the left, I've gotten negative increments. So I'll tell you in a minute what that is. Okay, so I'll leave it at 10. So it's got some amount, and it needs some rate for us to listen what's going on. Okay, so there's a snake. Here's the LFO, the same sort of shape that is drawn right here. We can hear it, and if we make it faster, it'll be more evident, and if we make it more intense, it goes crazy. Okay, so the amount is how much the pitch is being affected. Like if you started from this pitch, how much it's being affected, right? And the rate is how fast it's being affected. So it's either or you see? Okay, so let's do that with the Volca instead of my precious singing. So if I want to give it more amount, that it travels further from the original note, it went really crazy, right? But if I give it a little bit of movement, that's more musical. Okay, it sounds more like a vibrato maybe. Okay, I can make it faster, and maybe we can start reaching, some sounds that are usable or musical. Well, any sound is actually usable, but first I'd recommend, and this is like a parenthesis right now, these machines are best understood when you first try to recreate sounds that actually exist, and then go crazy imagining new sounds. But to really, get a grip of how this machine is organized and how your brain should work around it, is to try to reproduce well-known sounds. We'll work on that later. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you why this thing goes either negative or positive. But to exemplify that, I'll use the other mod type, the rise fall, or the envelope type, which is more dramatic in how it grabs the note and releases the note. So just listen to this, and I'll give it more amount. So it's going pew, pew, pew. It's traveling from the note. Listen, I'm gonna put the amount on 0 again. 0 again. Okay, okay, there. So now you'll hear the pitch, the proper pitch. That's the pitch. Okay. Now let's see how far it travels from that pitch. Okay. It's like maybe a half step or something higher. Okay. So if I keep giving it amount, it travels higher every time. So one thing you should notice is that when I'm moving the amount to the right, it's producing a pitch that is higher to the proper pitch or to the original pitch. So it's coming from an above pitch to below. It ends on my original pitch. Okay, so If I do it the other way around and I go to a negative number, it'll do the other trick. So okay, so I'll make it real slow. There. So it starts from below and it ends on my pitch. Okay, so that would be maybe like a guitar bend, right? So you bend the string, you start from a lower position to a higher position. Okay, so we could say, let's make it a little bit faster. And maybe we could say, okay, and then it goes crazy. But as you see, the mod type is a pitch modulation. It's a pitch modifier that affects pitch over time. So that's why the amount is how much the pitch travels, and the rate is how fast it travels on time, in time. Okay. Um, Last thing about this. Okay, we haven't listened to the noise, to the random modifier. So let's see what it does. First, let's give it a lot of amounts. We'll bring the pitch lower just to listen from a lower pitch. Okay, that was interesting. So it's random. It's fun. We could try to sort of dominate it. That would be interesting with some sort of bit reduction or glitchy sounds. Okay, so we've looked at sound sources, pitch modulation types, and now we should look at the amp EG. That means that's the amplitude envelope generator. So what's an amplitude envelope generator? It's what defines the attack and release of sounds. What's the attack and release of sounds? It's the articulation of um, the sound. So this has a lot to do with, if we think in the real world of real instruments, like the material of what a string is made, for example, and how it's attacked by the instrument or the player. Let's take a look at how that works over here. So I'm just gonna hear a note. Let's see where we're standing here. Okay, so we're on the sawtooth sound source. We've had a modulation type that is the envelope or the rise and fall. We're just gonna bring the pitch a little bit higher. Okay, there. And first thing I'm gonna do is just bring the release it's at maximum here. It's at the top, like 255. So it's a really long release. I'm just playing right here, like I'm gonna do. And all that extra note we got there is all release. So let's just give it half or more what it had before. Okay, and there it's like a short note, right? So that's release. It's quite simple. An attack, I'm just gonna keep pressing. I'm gonna give it a little bit more release, and I'm gonna keep pressing a note and bring the attack higher, which would move from a very sharp note to a note that becomes more and more like a blow, right? Like if I was blowing into a note. So. Okay, so that's obviously quite quite strong, quite a strong difference. I'm gonna just jump from one to the other, and then. Okay, there's three types of amplitude envelope generators on the Volca drum. One is the linear that will actually rise and fall in a linear way, like in an organized steady motion. Then there's, so let's hear that. Okay, then there's the this is called the exponential envelope, and this is much more dramatic. Okay, let's compare. That sounds much more natural. This is very dramatic. Okay, and then the next one is called multi-peak, although it should be called double peak because it's only 2 apart from the note you play. So let's hear that. So you heard 3 peaks there. That's because it's my note and the other 2. So it's always going to be 2. So let's just play a little bit more with the linear, with a more regular type, and we'll just have a note that has a sharp attack and a long decay. Okay, just like that. Now let's have a note that has one of these exponential attack release envelopes, and see what happens when I bring both really close together, or even when the attack is longer than the release. You get that backwards sound, and that's a cool trick because, of course, you get that very sharp movement on the attack, and then the release is like shorter, so you get that sense of the note being backwards, right? So if I make it even longer, there, it's like a backwards note. You can try, lots of things here, but the idea is that you understand about note articulation, and that is composed of how the note starts, how the note ends, and somewhat in the middle. This doesn't have a middle section that is so strong, but it's good enough. So let's just make a couple of movements with the multi-peak and see what happens. Okay, so if we increase the attack, we can hear the separation of the three attacks, my attack and the 2 extra ones. Okay, but remember that if you want to put things in order, you have the sound source first, then it's modulated by the mod type or the pitch modulator, and then that whole package is passed through the amp envelope generator. So the signal travels in that order. That's something you should keep in mind. Okay, so that was the sound design tutorial for the Volca drum. I hope you've learned something new. And don't leave yet. Before you go, maybe now it's a great time for you to like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment, or any of those good things that make me get out a kick out of these videos that I put up. So next time I'll be posting the last video of how to make some specific drum sounds using the same tools and techniques we learned today, plus some synth lead and synth pad sounds, which is pretty cool that this drum machine can actually play lead and pads. So we'll take a look at that too. If you get the chance and have the extra time, check out my channel, see some of my ambient guitar videos. That's what I actually do. So I'd appreciate that a lot. Leave comments, like, subscribe, all those good things. So take care, keep making music. I'll see you next time.